where to take my stuff in because we have to set up the booth that afternoon. And he's right there on time. So we walk 2 blocks down to the garage where I just left the truck an hour before. And I get it, and it's $17 for an hour. But I have to leave this garage because we have to go around these one-way streets 3 blocks to the back of the convention center, which we finally find. And at the back of the convention center, you pull up, and there is a ramp, a giant concrete ramp, 30 feet wide. It's as long as a football field. You could land a private plane. If you were in trouble over the skies of Philadelphia, look for the ramp behind the convention center. And it leads up to the back door, and that's where everybody is lined up and pulling in to dispense their goods for this comic convention. So I get in that line, and finally I get in, and it's a while, but I'm sitting there in my truck, so at least nobody's trying to kill me, right? Pull in the facility, unload the stuff. Of course, it's about 90 degrees in there because they've got all the doors open. So it's a cardio exercise, putting all this stuff out. Gabe's helped me with this cart to move everything over. As I'm assembling my booth, I see, well, there's Tommy Dreamer. And Tommy has his House of Hardcore guys there. And because they're going to have wrestling matches throughout the weekend. And Tommy's guys are all just sitting there. They've got the ring truck, but as you know, and somebody finally came up, and I think it was Tommy himself. Somebody I'd heard before I talked to Tommy. The union at the Philadelphia Convention Center didn't want Tommy's ring crew to set the ring up. They said that was supposed to be their job. But then they said, "What, do you know how to set a wrestling ring up?" Hum. So they held these poor guys up for I don't know how long. I believe they were there 2 or 3 hours before they got anything done at all. And then I believe the dispensation, once again, Tommy, if you're listening and you want to call in and clarify this, but I think they paid these fucking union fucking guys to sit there and watch these other guys put the ring up. Or something, or maybe they didn't even have to watch them. I don't know. And you will find out. Normally, I'm a liberal, I'm a Democrat, right? That means I was supposed to be for the unions and the workers, but it's fucking pricks like this that give unions bad names to people where they don't want them. Because they were being fucking pricks to everybody, as you'll soon find out.
Back in the old days, though, like when Crockett would come into Philly, did you guys ever encounter any union issues?
Not at the Civic Center. That I'm aware of. I don't know. Maybe it was just because they were there every month. They had already taken care of that in whatever manner. I remember one time, and I don't even think, I think this was when I was off with my knee surgery from Starrcade, that some union building in maybe Cleveland insisted on putting the scaffold up instead of Klondike Bill. And it was shits and shaky, and the boys didn't want to do even as much as usual. So that, you know, but this was anyway. You will hear more. So finally, you know, I get my stuff laid out, and I think, okay, I'm sweating, I'm soaked, and I'm going to go and I'm going to try to get one evenings of rest, right? But now I got to figure out where to park the truck because I can't go to the hotel garage. If that other garage I was in, you know, it was $17 for an hour, you know, and also I had to give this fucking shady looking guy my goddamn keys. And I tipped him $5 just so maybe, you know, that would help some. Right. I look, and there, down at the bottom of this airplane fucking landing strip ramp is a lot right there. So I figure on the loadout, because it's going to be a nightmare also on Sunday, I'll be right there. So I go down, but as I get down the ramp and I turn immediate, like U-turn left into this lot, it's one of those irregular shaped city lots that they put around some buildings and just wherever they can fucking get it. And the spots are tiny and narrow and it's irregular shaped. I'm like, fuck, I got this battleship. So finally, I find a spot that I can get into, and also that nobody can park behind me because it's one of the other aisleways, right? That I can pull back just enough to where I won't be blocked from behind. And I'm crossing my finger because now I'm going to be 3 blocks from the hotel. And I'm always very anxious, as you know, because you have been with me in New York.
Oh, yeah.
When I do not have car keys in my pocket and access to a vehicle immediately if I want to go somewhere, I start getting anxious. And by the way, and I still ain't got my voice back from this whole excursion this weekend, so pardon me. But I'm figuring, okay, I'll cross my fingers. It's right here next to this Civic Convention Center. There's got to be cameras. So I lock everything up. It's empty now. There's nothing in it. I go to pay. There's no attendant there. It's the pay thing with the card, right? The machine. 24 hours is the maximum. I got to be there for 3 days. And it's $30 a day to park in a parking lot in this fucking town, right?
That's the Northeast.
The Louisville Airport parking is $1 an hour. And that's in the short term. Anyway, so I'm like, what the fuck? All right, so I put the card in, boom. Now I walk 3 blocks to the hotel. And that night I just stayed in. I had room service. Because here's another thing. As soon as I got there, everybody said the Reading Terminal Market right around the corner. It's right in between the hotel and the convention center. I'll walk past it every day. Best food anywhere, right? Cheesesteaks or Chinese or anything you want. It's just a series of shops and restaurants and markets there. Closes at 6 p.m. every day.
Oh.
Every day. It closes at the exact time or earlier that I get out of the convention every fucking day, right? So I get back to the hotel at 6:10 and I have my room service, cheeseburger and wings. And I've fucking, try to decompress a little bit. Okay, tomorrow's going to be a great day. Going to have the show and all that stuff. But I've got the anxiety because the truck is 3 blocks away from me. And also now I've got stuff in the convention center, and you look out the hotel window, all I can see is roofs of buildings. I can't even see the street. I'm in the middle of downtown. It's anxiety. So I don't sleep well, but I do sleep. Get up the next morning, and John has fallen all the way from Baltimore and is there to meet me. He's going to help man the Cornette's Collectibles booth over the weekend with me. And we walk over there, and I've never experienced this, but at the same time, we're going in the front, even though they're letting us in. Because usually if I'm at a convention, I go in the back, and just walk in like, here at Rupp or Nashville or whatever the fuck. Up here, you're going through the metal detectors, and they're scanning you with a wand. And you have to put your shit through. It's like the airport, which makes me nervous. But we get inside anyway. And Friday was a wonderful day at the convention. And I want to say this. I always put over the fans in the Carolinas that are so nice to us and blah, blah, blah. But I can't tell you when or if that I've been around more a polite, respectful, pleasant, just flattering, nice fans that has came to see me all weekend, but especially on Friday, because a lot of people were there for my show, but all weekend. And in Philly, of all places, where everybody's, supposed to be, the city of brotherly hatred or whatever. But no, everybody was cool. And I can't even mention all the names because there was, I can't remember over 100 names, but they brought me birthday gifts. I got Wendy's cards. I am going on the road a couple more times this year, so those come in handy. Donna gave me an old Crockett VHS tape that I just got a kick out of seeing again. I think you may have seen this tweeted that Cody Wells, he's Mr. Lego, did a giant 5 by 3 foot portrait of me and Stace in Legos. And he brought Lawler a Dukes of Hazzard belt that's signed by all the Dukes of Hazzard that I ended up with in my truck because Lawler was flying. So I'm delivering that to the king at a later date.
Was it a problem getting the Lego piece home?
No, not any more problem than I had getting my ass home. No, it was right there, and it came in one piece. But anyway, all these folks brought presents, and Jeremy Bagley, old jacked up Jeremy. But everybody, I'm not just saying I liked them because they brought me presents, but everybody was so nice, and also at the meet and greet and at the show and the whole thing. So, like I said, Gabe Yoakum and his staff at Reed Pop, and John was great, and my Jewish stalker Mike Kaufman, because Bill Apter, wonderful Willie Apter, was my special guest at the Q&A to cue some of the A's. And he says because it's the Northeast, we have to pronounce Mike Kaufman. Caleb Seltzer came down. I appreciate that. Professor Ouch saved the day here. More on that in a minute. Frank Chili, and thanks to Jerry the King Lawler himself, gave me a birthday poster. But anyway, so Friday's great, right? And I'm thinking, boy, the show's going to be good tonight. And then the extra cheese thing. And if the show's supposed to start at 7, about 6:10, Gabe comes over and sits down and has that cartoon basset hound face like I've just gotten horrible news. I'm like, what's this? What's the matter? Apparently, he had told me when I came up with the extra cheese marketing idea, right? Because Andy Kaufman, milk and cookies, me and Philly, we got to have cheesesteaks. It'll be a draw, right? I'm a promoter at heart. He had said that, well, there's a union at the building, but I talked to somebody and we're just going to give them something to just not care is basically the way it was. Okay, fine. It was several $100s. I can't remember what the amount was, but still that was broached and talked about. And they had paid for these cheesesteaks, like $1,000 worth of cheesesteaks in advance so that they would be there. Guess what happened? The cheesesteak place called the union at the convention center to find out if they were allowed to bring the $1,000 worth of cheesesteaks they had sold and been paid for already. And the convention center, the union said no. And suddenly I'm like, what the fuck? Now with 45 minutes to go, we've promised these people, I've promised my people cheesesteaks, right? And I'm supposed to go out and do a show here in 45 minutes, and I'm hearing this. It's like when to be honest, not to be morbid, but when I was supposed to do the Snappy Comedy Open at the Charlotte Fan Fest a few years ago and had to be the one to announce instead that Roddy Piper had passed away, the mood turned. And I'm like, what the fuck? And thankfully, there standing next to us was Professor Ouch, who says, wait a minute. Sam Garcia over at Pat Steaks, he's a friend of mine, and come to find out that's when I've since seen the picture. I had met Sam like 12 years ago when we did our Midnight Express reunion for Ring of Honor up there, and Sam was on weekends. And we get a hold of Sam Garcia at Pat Steaks, the Philly's finest, baby. I don't care what anybody says. Pat Steaks are the bomb. And he fixed us up with an emergency box of like about 100 cheesesteaks that we then smuggled into the fucking convention center in a goddamn cardboard box to save extra cheese. So the
union should visit Professor Ouch, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the union should visit the deepest, darkest fucking bowels of my colon and kiss my ass from the inside because there's more. So anyway, we get over to the room and they have a nice room in the building. It's like an amphitheater type of room with a stage and rise seating and everything. And we got the big screen and we're going to show the tape of the match with Midnight, which we do. Midnight and Horseman from 30 years ago, as we talked about. I do some stand-up. I melted down at the end, but I do some stand-up. I do some sit-down. We watch that match, talk about it. Then I introduce wonderful Willie Apter. And we talk a bit and we start the questions and we take 2 or 3 questions. And I see some fucking woman in the back of the room that's not, it's not Gabe and his staff. It's just some usher. I don't know why we needed an usher, really, holding up a sign that says 5 minutes. I'm like, what the fuck? I was intending to just make up for some of the problems, especially that the general admission ticket holders had with finding and getting the tickets, and then whether they were supposed to be admitted or not to the Comic Con and blah, 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 all that stuff we've gone over. And I'm not told that there's any other event after me in this room. And I wasn't actually told at the start, you got to leave at 8:30, but sure enough, I see this 5-minute sign and I keep talking because I don't know who the fuck this is and I don't really care. And then I see a sign that says 1 minute. They've actually got a 1 minute sign.
Oh my God.
And I said, who the fuck is holding? I think that's when I said, who the fuck is holding up these fucking signs at me? Right. And Gabe has to make the announcement on the microphone, ladies and gentlemen, the union says we have to be out of this room by